Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a very interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the new Artisan Cutlery Boa. Very, very good looking. So this knife was designed by a 17-year-old knife designer named Jonathan Shaw. He is on Instagram at triple.stripe.knives, so give him a follow. So Artisan Cutlery actually sent me 4 different versions of this knife, and it's important for you guys to know there's an active Kickstarter right now. So you can actually check that out. I'm going to link it right down in the description. So you guys can go check it out because they have pricing for early birds that is very good. Believe me, we are going to talk about every single version of this knife, including this incredibly fancy boy right here. But while the actual base pricing was the way that they've got the pricing on the Kickstarter, if you get in on it, is very, very good. It's extremely good. So it's kind of like one extreme end to another. I'll link all of that right down in the description. You guys can check it out. Thanks so much to Artisan Cutlery for sending these in. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this knife. It's not a huge knife, but it's not a tiny knife either. Overall length is coming in at about 7 1/8. It's not quite 7 1/4, about 7 1/8. Blade length, you know what? I'm going to call that 3 1/4. Cutting edge, 3 inches on the dot. Nice ratios too. How about some size comparisons up against the, where did the Ontario Rat go? There it is, way up here hiding. Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2. This is definitely much more of an Ontario Rat 2 size knife. A little bit more presence there. How about up against the Demco AD 20.5? There we go. And you know what? Let's do like the CJRB Pyrite. I think might be a good size comparison there. And then how about the Spyderco Para 3? And last but not least, let's do the Benchmade Bug Out. There we go. So how is the action? All 4 of these knives, which, you know, again, they were sent by Artisan Cutlery, but all 4 of them have identical action. The action's very, very good. Manipulation on this knife is fantastic. You can reverse flick it with the thumb studs. You can do the front flip. I'm sorry. Yeah, front. The brain fart. The power of that brain fart was unparalleled. I went offline for a second. You can front flip it very easily. And I think really the one that people are going to opt for is the reverse flick because of this very large hole that runs like 50% the length of the blade. Like, I mean, it's right in the middle, but it's huge. So you can really get your finger in there and get it to deploy. Very, very smooth. The access to the lock bar is good. The only gripe I have is that the thumb stud is very peaky. It's a lot like the thumb stud on the Sebenza, which is just too pointy. This should be domed, and we shouldn't have so many steps leading to what is essentially a Microtech glass breaker. It's just too pointy. The rest of it is very good, and the detent is tuned to accommodate for each one of these systems, which is nice because while it's not a little tiny knife, it is on the smaller side, and front flipping, a little tiny knife is usually pretty difficult. So this is fine though. I especially like the versions with the inlays, like on the carbon fiber version, which I know a lot of people are going to opt for this like shadow version, right? The inlay covers the frame. On the frame lock version, it is exposed, but I can tell you that using the little hole there or using the thumb stud, it's very, very little difference. You just have to really pay attention and not put too much pressure on that lock bar. We're using this one because having all 4 on screen at the same time is just too crowded, and I think this is the one that like looks the best on camera, just for demonstration. Let's go ahead and do carry profile. So thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3, no thicker than the Para 3. It is contoured though, worth pointing out. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. This guy's going to be pretty friendly in the pocket. It is actually shorter. No, it's not. It's exactly the same overall length as the Para 3 closed. Nowhere near as tall though. Really, the reason that it is because this front flipper peeks over. let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'll get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description. Probably would help if you could see them. The section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel, it's also in the pinned comment. I'm going to guess that the pivot is a T8 and everything else is T6. No, it's T8. No way. They actually use T8 screws. Wow. Fantastic. Couple of inlay screws, not a big deal. Couple of body screws. So you got 4 screws on each side. I'll take that. I'll take 4 on each side, T8, over 2 on each side, T6. I hate T6. That's great. Fantastic. I don't know if it was, the designer's request, if it was Jonathan's request, or if Artisan was like, you know what, let's use T8. Either way, I'm happy with it. Let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness. I'm going to guess that this is 115 thousandths. Let's have a look. No, it's a little bit thicker. It says it's coming in at 121.5, so it's probably 120 thousandths. That's fine with me. Materials, what are we looking at here? So we're looking at S35VN for all of these models, except one. And you can probably guess which one. It's this one right here. This is mirror polished S90V. It's also polished solid Damascus. I know people are wondering about the pricing on this one. If this is going to be some like incredible, amazing discount, like they magically got this stuff down. No, this guy is still ridiculously expensive. But we have to remember, if this exact knife were made in the United States, you'd be like $1,500 would be on the low end. And I know a lot of people gasp and shock and oh my goodness, right? No, that's accurate. That on the low end, that's what you can expect for a mirror polished blade and a full Damascus frame. In fact, it's generally substantially higher than that. So did Artisan Cutlery, taking a sidetrack here, did they come down to a reasonable price for these materials and these finishes? Yes. Is it still very expensive? Yes, for this guy. These guys are substantially lower, right? But I don't want anybody watching this video hoping to find out that you can get that mirror polish and Damascus one for $200, because it's not going to happen. Those materials and those finishes are legitimately expensive. There's no smoke and mirrors with that stuff. But anyways, these are all titanium and micarta, or titanium and carbon fiber, or titanium and titanium. And then you'll have your choice of what they call a sand washed blade, which, let me tell you, is substantially nicer than your typical satin finished knife. This is very, very similar to that finish that was, I'm trying to shine it up here, that finish that we got on that CJRB Pyrite, that special edition one a while back. It's not a mirror polish, but it's extremely reflective. Much, much better looking than what you normally get with just the most, the belt satin finish. I am so sick of that finish. I like this a lot. This is really, really nice, and it feels premium. And if you're not into the shiny stuff, then they have the stealth version, right? What were we talking about? We were talking about materials. So those are your options so far. Damascus and mirror polished S90V, micarta, blasted titanium, and sand washed S35VN, carbon fiber, coated titanium, and coated S35VN, or titanium, which is sort of like a hammered or pocket, like some, I don't know exactly what we call this finish, right? Robot alligator skin, and then the sand washed blade. I think they all look great. I don't know what my favorite is. I think if they had done like a gray micarta or like a forest green micarta here, that would have been my favorite, but they all look excellent. So weight, we should weigh them all for sure, because they're all going to weigh slightly different. So let's start off with the micarta version. The micarta and titanium comes in at 3.07 ounces, which is great. That's a nearly perfect ratio of total blade to weight. The full titanium one doesn't weigh much more. Let's try the carbon fiber one. 3.14, and then the Damascus version should weigh about the same as the titanium, and it actually weighs more. Okay, there we go. So between 3 and 3.5 ounces, it looks like. Nothing crazy. Do with that information what you will. Let's go ahead and move into the meat and potatoes here. I am a huge fan of the aesthetic of this knife. And what's interesting here is we have these little subtle areas, which are, I'm going to call them suggestion zones. It's not quite like the Boker Kalashnikov, where they are very much ordering you to put your hands in a specific spot. These are more suggestion zones, suggestion zones. Still having trouble with that. The reason I call them that is because there's so much handle room that even here, me, you know, I don't have the biggest hands in the world, but I wear an XL glove. I still have a little bit of room to move around. And if you want to do that, these zones are not so, you know, hardcore that you can't move around just a little bit. It's pretty comfortable. In fact, the entire knife is extremely comfortable. The pocket clip is contoured, and then the only spot that's a little bit, it's just a little teeny tiny bit pointy at the top, but it's not poking up into your hand. So that's not really that big of a deal. This little notch back here, I'm gonna call it a harpoon notch, is also really comfortable. Kind of wish that they jimped it all the way out, but this is still a good zone. Choking up behind the blade, you can definitely do that, and it is very comfortable. The combination of the contouring, right, and the scales, and I think, you know, on the titanium version, is the comfort still there? Yeah, it really is. I thought that it wouldn't be, but honestly, it really is. The most traction you're going to get out of any of these is definitely on the titanium one because of the way they did it. So the carbon fiber is definitely going to be the most slippery, but it's also extremely comfortable. Just every part of this knife is very comfortable and not aggressive towards your hand, except for the tips of the thumb studs. And then on occasion, if you kind of drag your hand against the peak of that clip, maybe. But realistically, while you're using it, I don't think it's going to be much trouble. The thumb studs are slightly in the cutting path, slightly. Outside of that, though, it's fine. We have a nice swedge. We have a little flat that runs out to about 75-80% the length of the blade. It comes down to, honestly, what feels like a somewhat thick, I don't want to say somewhat thick. Let's slice a piece of paper with it and see first. It lifts the edge just a little bit, but it actually slices pretty well. The factory edge is sharpened nicely. It's just the geometry of it is a little bit thicker than I think what we would normally expect for this size of knife. But it's obviously able to get the little curly cues, and it's able to bite in and slice. You can reprofile it if you want to, but factory geometry, factory edge, that's what it's going to look like. It's all right. It'll perform EDC tasks just fine. The inside of this hole is definitely knocked down. I think that might be actually a product of this sand washing. It's almost like it's like a satin finish that they also tumble or that they also media tumble and then polish. I'm not really sure how they're doing it, or that maybe they're blasting it with sand and then polishing it. I'm not sure. It is definitely different and definitely more reflective than your typical belt satin finish, and even more so than your, like a medium polished tumbling, like from Kaiser. It's more reflective than that. So this is, it's an added bonus. It really is. It really makes the blade pop, But, that's not to say that the all black one doesn't look good. It's the profile and this elongated sort of deployment slot that they've gotten here. It's really nice. I am just a big fan of shadow boxing and how they have these inlays contoured and then shadow boxed by the frame underneath. I really like how that looks. I think that just looks spectacular. We have a little lanyard bar back here, and that's great for lanyard people. There is no position for lefties. Once again, lefties being left out. We really need to find a way, universally, whether you wrap the clip around and slot it into the titanium or whatever you do, we need to find a way to, include lefties, because they are being left out of some of the most interesting projects, some of the most interesting designs of the year, and they're just used to that. But I don't think that they have to be. I think that people almost have to make an active choice to ignore them. So we got to find a way to do that. As far as pocket clip functionality, I've never understood why we do clips where the bill, like underneath the part of the titanium that touches the frame, why we come up and over. It should be over and up. Why? Because when you push it into your pocket, a ramp like this will rise to meet your pocket seam. This is more of a jamming the pocket seam down and into the frame, which will still work. It's just more pinchy, right? So I would have preferred that, but that's pretty nitpicky. It's not that big of a deal. Carry depth is good. That's all the more that you're going to see sticking up out of your pocket. In and out of your pocket, save for the titanium one, is going to be a smooth experience. And even the titanium one, I think the titanium's knocked down. And it's not going to readily fray up your pocket. We have an internal stop pin. And those pins are attached to the blade and run on little channels in the titanium that have been carved out on either side. So you gain, in my thought process, is excess stability, since there are 2 points of contact versus 1 point over a traditional stop pin. You can see here on the rat. People always asking, what do I mean by that? The tang of the blade is just a single point of contact on one stop pin, whereas when you have a peg on each side of the blade running on the frame here, on the lockout, it's got 2 points of contact, one for each peg. Okay, you guys get it. Let's take a look in here, because I believe that is a steel lock bar insert, and I'm forgetting now that my flashlight is up here for convenience, so that I don't have to do exactly what I just did. And I am exactly right. That is a steel lock bar insert, and that's great. That's the case on both the titanium version and the frame. It's still a frame lock. It's a frame lock with overlays, right? So that's awesome. No blade play, up, down, left, or right. No lock stick. No pivot lash. Very, very consistent and smooth action. So that's just going to get better over time. Nice clicky detent. We've got perfect centering. How about the shadow one? Everything feels identical, by the way. The shadow one is centered. The titanium one, again, action. Feels the exact same. Still centered. Are we centered on that guy? Yeah, we are. I don't know what was throwing my view off. How about the mirror polished one? Yep. And I know I'm touching it with my hands. Again, action identical. I'm a huge fan of this. Now, let's talk about the pricing. 'Cause here's the thing. As far as the functionality and the design go, I'm all in. Like the design of this is great. The look of it's great. Like this is it's a cool looking knife. We got the personality and we got the functionality. It's one of those designs that looks good and works, which sometimes can be rare. Sometimes you got to go with one or the other, right? But in my opinion, it looks good and it works, right? It's a cool knife to carry. It's a fun knife to use. A little thick behind the edge. Pocket clip is a little pointy. Thumb studs are a little pointy. Outside of that, though, very good. Some of Artisan Cutlery's best work. I am blown away that they can get a mirror polish on S90V. That is insane. I didn't want to focus too much on this guy because I know that those are limited and extremely expensive, but holy crap, that is not a joke finish. That is a mirror polished S90V blade. Wow, unreal. They even polished the Timascus. Everything about this looks good. You didn't put the Artisan Cutlery logo on here, you would definitely assume that this is a multi-$1,000 knife, which is the case. Again, there's always people just in absolute disbelief that can even be possible. It is. The sooner you accept that this is just what that type of stuff costs when it's not made in China, the better, right? Because no amount of, it's not a puzzle you need to figure out. It's just that's what it costs. It's not cheap to do that. It's not cheap to apply a mirror finish to S90V. It's not cheap to make Timascus. It's not cheap to machine Timascus. It's not cheap to polish Timascus, right? And to have everything come together with great tolerances and just overall great execution, it's not a cheap thing to do. It doesn't matter if you can get a gun or 2 guns or 5 guns for the price. That's a meaningless statement. This has nothing to do with firearms, right? You want a firearm, you buy a firearm. But that's what this costs. I mean, period. There's just this what it goes for. But because this is made in China, assembled and manufactured and all of that, it costs substantially less. So what's the price? What's the base price on each of these? Well, they have the base price listed at like $285 for each of these, and then they give you massive discounts for doing the pre-orders through the Kickstarter. So the least expensive you can get these, which is, at the price that they've got it, is 100%. You can get these as, if you order it early, you get them as low as $179 or something like that. At 179 bucks for any of these, that's wonderful. Absolutely, they're worth that all day. I'm gonna be honest with you. Even if you don't do that, there's like another tier where it's like if you don't get in right away, but you still pre-order it, it's like 199 for each of these, which is still fair. And by the way, the pre-order price or the base price of this guy without doing the pre-order is like $1,000, which, okay, that's still substantially less than what we see, if it were to be made in the USA. But the version of this Timascus and Mirror Polish S90V, if you get the pre-order, the full pre-order price, I want to say it's like $650, which, I mean, yeah, that's a lot of money, but for full Timascus and S90V, you can complain all you want, but find me another knife. Find me another knife like that on the internet. Find me another one that's that low. It doesn't happen, right? I've got some knives, like the closest that I have. I've got some integrals with massive zircotai inlays, and satin finished blades that are made in China that come in at $1,000 or more, right? So they're quite fair with that. I know we're gonna have some kickers and some screamers and spaghetti makers, right? But let them do it. If you want my opinion as somebody who actually compares this stuff all day, every day, because it's my job, yeah, that's fine. And then it's like $685 if you don't go with the immediate, like the day one or whatever. It's not day one, but it's just like the early bird special, right? They also have a version that's in full Timascus that's in the sand washed, the same finish as this guy, and it's a little bit less. You got to pay more for the mirror polishing. But that's aside. They're obviously hyper limited on these. With these, I really hope that once everything's all said and done, that number one, this is a regular model that they produce, and number two, they don't try to charge $285 for them, right? If they want to get these on the shelves after the pre-order's done and they want to go, $210, $215, I think that would be fair. I think $179 for the early birds, I think that's wonderful. If you like how this knife looks, then go for it, because that's a really good price. But I really hope that if they decide to continue to produce them, I really hope they don't try to put them out there for $285. That's just too high. But where they have these priced currently, they are excellent. And as you know, this review is based on that early pricing. If that's the case, these are extremely recommendable in any configuration. This is a really great design. I think it's amazing that the gentleman who designed these is 17. You check out his Instagram though. He clearly knows what he's doing. This isn't like, somebody who just blew in with the tumbleweeds. No, this person knows what they're doing. So make sure that you follow Jonathan Shaw for sure. This is really cool. I appreciate Artisan Cutlery letting me handle all of these versions and share them with you guys. Like I said, I'll have all this stuff linked down below so you can check it out. This is going to go in my most recommended knives playlist. Thanks so much for watching. Please, I'm going to have to move the Timascus boy. There we go. We'll just scoot him over here. How about that? Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.